Hello and welcome to another episode of Attacking Third, a CBS Sports Soccer podcast. I'm Sandra Herrera, lead NWSL writer for CBS Sports, joined today as always by my colleague and co-host Lisa Roman, NWSL analyst and broadcaster. On today's episode, we are going to discuss the NWSL's return to play after calling off matches last weekend following former North Carolina Courage coach accusations against Paul Riley for sexual coercion and sexual misconduct. Lots of demonstrations happening across the league during Wednesday's matches, and Lisa and I are going to get into that right now. A quick reminder to follow us on Twitter at Attacking Third. You can also head on over to our YouTube page at youtube.com/Attacking Third so that you never miss a new video, interview, or whenever we go live. And plus, you can catch great NWSL extended highlights of all the matches. Lisa, what an emotional night.
Very, very emotional. I think everyone in the country that had been following this story and especially fans of the NWSL and you and I and other people that cover this league knew this night was going to be very special, knew that these players that play in this league and even the Players Association and even the clubs and everyone involved at the player level is intelligent, and they are here for the right reasons, and they have the power to make a stand and make a difference right now and make their voices be known. And when the players chose to play tonight's matches, these midweek matches after the games being called off last weekend, we knew that something was going to be happening. This is the chance where the players have the microphone in their hand and a chance for them to speak to the entire nation, honestly, the entire world. And that's exactly what we saw tonight.
Yeah, triple header taking place on Wednesday night as all teams, as the league returned to play, and all six teams participating in Wednesday night action also participated in a show of solidarity, a demonstration that took place on the pitch. The first one to take place was during the New Jersey-New York Gotham FC game against Washington Spirit, and then once again in the North Carolina game versus Racing Louisville, and then a third time in the Portland Thorns game versus Houston Dash. It was a demonstration that took place during the 6th minute of the match where players linked arms in the center circle in solidarity and support for former NWSL players Sinead Farrelly, Mana Shim, and former Washington Spirit player Kaya McCullough after a very tumultuous week for the NWSL, where there were the conclusions of Washington Spirit investigations, the termination of former head coach Richie Burke, and then the article from The Athletic via Meg Linehan about the story of Sinead Farrelly and Mana Shim and their traumatic experiences with former head coach Paul Riley. And it was absolutely an emotional demonstration. I think it was something, like you said, Lisa, that we sort of knew was forthcoming. The Players Association mentioning earlier in the week that they would have further demands that they would, eventually release. And during the broadcast of the CBS Sports Network match of Gotham FC and Washington Spirit, Marissa Pilla, the sideline reporter, doing an excellent job trying to keep everybody informed, basically stated during the match that she was handed a note by Amani Dorsey, and by extension of that was reading what the Players Association was hoping to achieve with the demonstrations taking place throughout all three matches. The reasoning for the 6-minute stoppage of play was to represent the 6 years that it took, saying on their social media channels that 6 years, silence is deafening. Teams will stop play in each of tonight's games in the 6-minute. Players will join together in solidarity at the center circle for 1 minute in recognition of the 6 years it took for Mana, Sinead, and all those who fought for too long to be heard. They ended it with a hashtag no more silence. They further went on to tweet out an additional thread that listed out a number of demands. We're talking about 8 different bullet points throughout this thread that I was looking at on their Twitter page, but it's also available via their Instagram as well. Some of these there's 8 points, so I want everybody to go to their socials and take a look, go to their website and take a look at. But there's a number of things that come into this. They want to encourage the fans to stand with them in the pain and discomfort of the players, and they also listed 7 additional points that includes participation in investigations that are conducted, and the role in hiring. They want a role in the hiring of a new commissioner, and those are probably the bigger scopes of those points. But Lisa, this players association is truly doing something special. They are absolutely rising to the moment and taking the opportunity to utilize this as a moment to really be heard.
And not just at the global level of the Players Association, but being on the field and at a stadium and watching the live streams and the network games, and all of a sudden the ball goes out of bounds. And especially during the first game, Gotham versus Washington, it was like, okay, the ball went out for a throw in, and now the whistle is being blown. And why is the bench clearing and going to the field? Why are all the players walking to the center circle? And in that moment of realizing that this is bigger than just a news story circulating. And for anyone who didn't realize that before tonight, and who didn't understand the scope of these demonstrations and the scope of the article and the scope of the allegations and what has been said, I think now you should understand. And you should understand that this is something that touches these players every single day, because it is their livelihood. It's their career. And to not feel safe going to work is scary. But to have the platform to be on the field, to join hands, go arm in arm, wrap your arms around your opponent's shoulders and stand there in solidarity for the victims and for protection of themselves in the league, and for every future soccer player to come, that is huge. It is monumental. And I think that this demonstration was brilliant.
You can really feel the emotion resonating, no matter how you were experiencing it, whether you were there in person or collectively as an online community. Quite frankly, where so much of the reaction was happening pretty rapidly. But even on the matches that had aired on Paramount Plus, what hearing a former player and now broadcaster and analyst Kaylin Kyle calling these games, you can hear the struggle that was there for her to try and get through these moments as she was being faced with it. Hearing somebody like Lori Lindsay in front of that kickoff on CBS Sports Network talking about how she is a former player who played across all 3 of the leagues, going all the way back to WSA, and how this type of behavior was normalized over all of these decades, and quite frankly that it's not okay. And you can hear the struggle in Kyle sort of referring to the fact that this was a coach that she actually used to play for, and puts herself in the category of players who was too scared to speak out about things at the time. So it was these things are just this night was just very, very impactful, and you could sort of feel that happening as everything was leading up to this Portland Thorns game specifically, because while there were those 2 prior demonstrations with the 2 earlier matches, there was a final match with Portland taking place at night, and the players of the Portland Thorns released an additional statement themselves, and they spoke together about wanting to issue some demands and hold some accountability for their club specifically, and the role that they played during during the allegations in 2015 where this story is stemming from. So within the Portland Thorns statement ahead of their match, they demanded the following. They asked that the investigations continue to proceed immediately, and that their GM, Gavin Wilkinson, be placed on administrative leave until that process concludes. Number 2, that there would be an increase in the diversity of voices within the club's board of executives. And then number 3, that we, the players of the club, gain seats at the table in order to increase transparency, accountability, and cooperation between the players in the front office. And just minutes, we're talking just minutes after that Portland Thorns specific player statement is released, the Portland clubs released a club statement of their own, saying that effective immediately, Portland Thorns FC have placed general manager / president of soccer Gavin Wilkinson on administrative leave from Thorns duties, pending the results of an outside investigation, which is ongoing. And while that was an immediate reaction and that could sort of be praised in that they took immediate action. The biggest thing that people are circling on here is that Gavin Wilkinson is being placed on administrative leave from Thorns duty, and that Gavin Wilkinson is actually, in fact, also the GM of MLS side Portland Timbers. So there is
Mhm.
still some dissatisfaction with this recent statement from the club. But I'm sure things, like they mentioned in this statement, that things are ongoing. So for the time being, he has been placed on leave from Portland Thorns specific duties. So a lot of things happening in this one night. And it's hard to believe, but there are still clubs that have not had the opportunity to participate in this demonstration themselves, and we could potentially see that happening as early as this weekend, Lisa.
I imagine we will continue to see things happening. These players have a voice and they deserve to be heard, and that's what's happening, and that's what we experienced tonight as a country and as a world, and as a fan base watching the NWSL and the players use the voice that they have to make a difference.
NWSL players using their platforms to make clear and concise statements and demands. No more silence. I want to thank everybody for listening. Follow us on Twitter at Attacking Third. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and anywhere you listen to your podcast shows. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and Lisa and I will answer a question. If you leave a question with a 5-star review, as part of our mailbag segment. So we're gonna leave you all here with that for now. We will be back with a recap of games for Sandra Herrera and Lisa Roman. This was Attacking Third.